Hey everybody, I'm Benjamin, aka the Terrible Australian at Supermarcy.com, and welcome to my video review of The Program, which is the biopic on controversial racing cyclist Lance Armstrong. So let's get right into it. Now, we all already know the story of Lance Armstrong's very controversial career, to say the least. Of course, he was well famous as probably one of the greatest sort of cyclists in the world, and he won the Tour de France a whole bunch of times, like consecutive, like in a row. And he was hailed a hero and an icon and a role model. And then a few years ago, it was discovered that he was a drug cheat, and of course pretty much his entire career just fell apart overnight, and justifiably so. So this film is, of course, about Lance's life, and of course sort of following how he sort of got into cycling, and then with his battles with cancer, and then him sort of having his drive to become the best cyclist in the world, and of course then once getting into cheating and taking drugs to improve his performance, and then with a journalist, David Walsh, who in the film is played by Chris O'Dowd, is kind of sort of sees Lance Armstrong as the cheat he is, and tries to pretty much find out the truth about it. And like, we kind of already know the story anyways, and I must be honest though, even though there are some good qualities with the program, unfortunately I just didn't really think much of it as a film overall. I mean, I really liked Stephen Frears' other work and all that, and unfortunately, to me, this is definitely one of his lesser films. I feel like his direction of this film is very pedestrian, and even though the cycling scenes are actually quite solid, unfortunately, I don't know what it is. I just didn't feel... And he's really good, because he's directed biopics before, and he does a really good job of them, but unfortunately, I just didn't feel like this one worked for me. And I suppose in a way, since, about 2 years back, there was a documentary that Alex Gibney made called The Armstrong Lie, which basically sort of covered Lance Armstrong's career, and as well as particularly his drug scandal. So I pretty much knew everything all about these events from that documentary. So this film, which is a sort of a narrative, I guess the very first narrative take on the story, on his life, on Lance Armstrong's life, it just didn't really offer anything that I hadn't seen before, and to be honest, I just found that it kind of dull, to be honest. Even though it has some pretty solid performances, it just didn't really engage me as a viewer. So, that's not to say, but to me, what at least made me interested in this film was, of course, the performances. Ben Armstrong, you can tell, Ben Foster, forgive me. Ben Foster does a really solid job in the role of Lance Armstrong. I think you can tell that he really... Well, since we all know Ben Foster is a method actor, you can tell that he really dived into this role to not only sort of to capture the personality and the look of Armstrong. And I mean, at times, during the course of the film, I swore... Foster looks so much like Armstrong in this film that it's very scary. So, and he does a good job, although I kind of feel like at least how the character is written, how Armstrong is written in this film is very black and white. He comes off as so, like, he sort of first starts off being the underdog and all that, but as the film goes along, he just turns into an outright villain. And... which, even though justifiably, I don't mind that, but, the thing is, which makes sense because, he was a cheat, and, he was a really bad person, and for doing all this stuff. But I kind of feel like the movie sort of paints him sort of so black and white that we never... And it's not a very complex take on the character. We don't really sort of... Even though Ben Foster does a really good job in the role, we never really sort of get any insight into Armstrong, like why he did all this stuff and what's going on in his brain. Like, does he feel remorseful for what he did? And to me, it just... it's just a very black and white sort of take, on the character. Like, he's just portrayed as pretty much as a villain in this film. And even though and deservedly so, I don't know, I kind of feel like I wish they sort of took a more of a complex approach to the role. Like, still portray him as a villain, but add more layers to him that actually make him much more interesting as, as a character, at least on screen anyway. Chris O'Dowd is solid in the role of David Walsh. A lot of the supporting parts are okay, but nothing particularly outstanding or anything like that. So, and the script by John Hodge is, it doesn't really add anything that we hadn't already seen before in other documentaries and whatnot. So, overall the program, while it has some good performances, it's just a pretty forgettable biopic, and if you've seen The Armstrong Lie, you've already seen this film. So, if I had to give this film a rating, I'd give it about 2.5. So, so that's my video review of the program. I hope you guys all enjoyed it, and I'll see you all later. See you, everyone. Bye.